Today on Double Coverage, we talk about UAB 2012 football storylines. We also caught up with Troy beat writer Drew Champlin, and he helped us preview and predict this year's UAB Troy game. All this and more today on Double Coverage. Tyler Cantrell with BlazerTV.com, and we just want to welcome you into the first ever edition of Double Coverage. We are taking our football coverage to a new level here at BlazerTV.com. This is our second year of football coverage, and this show is going to revitalize how we cover it. We hope you're going to be excited about it. You're going to be able to find out everything we're doing every week. You can follow us on social media. You can follow us at BlazerTV.com, at BlazerTV.com on Twitter. You can check us out on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter as well at Tyler_Cantrell, Cantrell. And you can get all kind of updates there about what we're doing, because this show, we're really excited about it. We're going to be putting a lot more in to covering football for you. And, it's not just going to be me, because it's double coverage. So it's obviously more than one person. And the other person that's going to be covering with us is former UAB football player, punting guru, and legend from the South Side, Trey Ragland.
Thanks for the introduction. I'm excited to be here. I know as a former player that those guys really appreciate what y'all have done so far, and looking forward to what we have in store so far. And you can follow me on Twitter, tragland37, and I'm going to take the verification status thing off so everybody can follow me.
Well, it's an exclusive club to be able to follow Trey Ragland, guys. So we're gonna fix that.
I need to get over 200 followers. So.
Former player setting right there. So we're gonna get that. You can keep up with us there. We're gonna be making some changes to the show. The format of today's show will not be how it is always. It's gonna change once we have a game to review. We don't have one this week, so we're gonna be talking about some 2012 headlines that we're going to be looking for right now. We're going to go into that, but be looking for some changes. Obviously, I'm going to mention too, me and Trey are going to have new haircuts where we can actually, our hair's so big we can't pull our headphones over it anymore. So we're going to be working on that. But looking forward to 2012, we're going to talk about some headlines that we're looking at going into this season. And the first thing I wanted to mention was the running backs. And this is a very deep unit. This is a different offensive philosophy for UAB going in than they've had in years past. And Trey, just talk about how the running game kind of worked while you were at UAB compared to what you kind of see coming up now.
Well, when we had Joe Webb, our running game was from him. He was our running game, and that was great. But you really need an established back, and we have that's something we haven't had. We've had Pat Shedd. He almost got 1,000 a couple years ago, but we need a back to get to 1,000 yards for the first time in a long time, and we got four very capable guys to do that, and the guys we have right now. And when those two came in last year with Greg and Darren against UCF and Southern Miss, it was evident that they could run that football, and I'm excited to see what they can do. And these are guys that are going to be here for a long time. So,
well, you mentioned them coming in last year. Obviously, Pat was the guy, and we talked before. Pat, very good back out in the open field, but not really an every down running back type of a player. And UAB before last year had not even had many guys over 100 yards rushing in a game other than quarterbacks. Other than, I know Rashad Slaughter one game when he was at UAB, but it was like on 6 carries. He had like several really long carries, 6 or 7 carries. So it just was something that wasn't normal for UAB. Looking back at last year, the Blazers start 0-6. During that time, they basically ran the ball not very much. They had 103 rushing yards per game, and they averaged less than a touchdown on the ground a game. They averaged 0.5 rushing touchdowns a game the first 6. Now, Pat goes down, and Darian and Greg Franklin both step up and are allowed, more carries. The offensive philosophy changed a little bit last year. Over the last 6 games, you go up to 155 yards a game, and you also start averaging a touchdown and a half a game. So you increase by 50 yards on the ground. You also increase by a full touchdown a game on the ground with those two guys getting opportunities. So we shouldn't be that surprised that these running backs have stood out during the spring and fall practices with Coach McGee, because we saw a little of it last year. But the issue here is there's two more running backs. And you talked a little bit earlier about even the rivals rating of Dontavius Jackson. We may be seeing a guy really get an opportunity under this staff that he didn't see before.
That's right. And like I said, we have four very capable guys. And the style of offense that we're going to be running this year is going to fit those guys a lot better than from the shotgun. They're going to be under center a lot more, running downfield, a lot more momentum. And I was never an offensive guru or player, but it's clear that an offense needs to establish the running game to get their offense going, and that's where it starts first, is up front and having good running backs, and that's something that we have this year.
And looking at those guys, it's going to be totally different, obviously, with a spotlight on them. Jonathan Perry does deserve some of the credit last year for the run game going up. Obviously, he was a better running quarterback than Brian Ellis was when he came in. But in fairness, Jonathan is a pass-first guy and not somebody that looks to tuck and run on most plays. He's just got the ability to make plays with his legs, and that's another asset for UAB. Most of that improvement in the run game, I think you've got to give to Darren Reeves and Greg Franklin last year, and how they were able to come in and step up. So that's going to be something, looking at that offensive quartet of running backs this season, that we're going to be really looking at those headlines. Also, Marvin Burdett, senior linebacker. This is a guy who have been really productive and stayed healthy throughout his 3 years so far at UAB. He's only 123 tackles away from leaving UAB as the all-time leading tackler in history. But you talk a little bit about Marvin, Trey. You said that he may not even recognize it.
Yeah, Marvin's such a great guy and humble, and and the record's probably not even going through his head right now. I hope not. But he's the kind of guy where if he gets the record, great, and they go to bowl game, great. But if not, and they still go to bowl game, he'd much rather have that. And this is a guy who's been here for a long time. 4-year starter, and just the overall leader on this football team, and we're looking for a lot of great things out of him, and he's going to have to be that guy who the team leads on this year, for leadership.
Well, 123 tackles away, it's a very achievable goal when you look at a guy who's been over 100 tackles the last 2 seasons. But it could potentially, even if Marvin stays healthy and has a really good year, it could be beneficial to UAB if he doesn't break the record, if there's improved play on the defensive front. So that's kind of something we're going to be looking for. That's a defensive unit that has a lot more experience this year. A lot of those guys look a lot different. Connor Boyette's got a position change. Daheem Watkins is a guy who's looked really good through the spring and fall. Derek Scott, other guys, Jewel Christian, have all looked a lot better during fall camp. And you got 2 new guys that have transferred in. Well, not transferred, I should say. They're both true freshmen, that they're going to be out there and really going to be making an impact. If those guys step up and do their job, there may not be the opportunity for Marvin to make as many tackles. So that's something Trey and I talked about as well. And so, it could be a good thing if he stays healthy. But one scary thing to me is, of how good Marvin could be, is Coach McGee said he's in the best shape of his life. And Marvin's agreeing with that. So how good is this guy going to be this year if he's in even better shape? When he averaged, how can you be in better shape than getting 100-something tackles a year?
Well, I can't wait to see it because he was already a guy that was always all over the field and chasing the ball. And if he shed 20 pounds like they say he has, it could be a scary sight. So I'm looking forward to it.
And obviously, that is going to be something we keep up with on Blazer TV every week. He's currently in 11th place on the tackle list at UAB, and he'll be moving up that rapidly. He should be up to 5th, 6th, just a few games in. It'll be something we keep up with. Another guy who's making a little bit of a move in the Blazer record books, but is just a junior this year, is Jackie Williams. Jackie Williams, on the career reception list for UAB, is already up to number 9. He's got 88 career receptions. He has got a reception in every game that he's played in. And this was a guy that was one of UAB's last signings when he was picked up. They almost didn't even get the guy. How productive is he to you?
Jackie was a guy who came in, like you said, really late. I think he came in during camp, and he's one of those guys that came in and right off the bat, everyone, he caught everyone's eye, and he had a great, he made freshman all conference that year, and obviously had the touchdown against Troy. But he's a guy that that can really move the football and is a real deep threat and can potentially be an all-conference receiver.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who has a realistic shot at leaving UAB with the career receptions list. He's going to have to get on it a little bit. Derek Ingram has 207. That was, as we talked about, not from Division I playing days, though. No disrespect to Mr. Ingram, that's going to be a difficult number to attain, but he very well could pass Frantrell Forrest for second on that list. Want to throw out a unique stat about Jackie last year. Jackie had 58 catches for UAB in only 11 games. He did not get to play against Memphis. And the next closest person was Patrick Hearn, a guy that obviously is looking big impact from him this year as well. But Patrick only had 31. So Jackie nearly doubled the number of receptions last year from first to second place on the UAB chart, playing one less game. How many touchdown passes did Jackie Williams have? How many do you think he had, Trey?
That'd be 0, which is incredible.
It's just an unbelievable stat. He had about 3 rushing touchdowns, but obviously that's going to be something to look for, as I think Jackie will be getting in the end zone on a more regular basis.
The guy just got to get in the end zone for us.
But a very strong wide receiving core. That'll be another good storyline for the offense this year. Also, we want to talk a little bit about the defense a little bit more. We already mentioned the defensive front had to be better. Last year, this is a storyline. Last year, without looking, Trey, can you think what game was the least amount of points scored on UAB last year?
That's Mississippi State.
21 points against an SEC opponent. And obviously that was a shutout.
Shutout in the first half, yeah.
Shutout at halftime. So, but it's unbelievable to think that was the lowest score game that UAB gave up last year. What kind of improvement do we need to see out of the defense? A lot of young guys in the secondary. Obviously, the D-line looks like it's making some strides, and you got a good linebacker core. But moving up the rankings, what do you need to see? What could this defense do to help this team win more football games, Trey?
Well, the D-line's got to get to the quarterback. That was an issue last year. We got great players on the D-line, and they were young on the D-line last year with Dothan and Trey Grissett. And these are guys that have put on 20 pounds in all season. I mean,
it's unbelievable looking at him
right now. And
it's unbelievable.
He looks like an SEC defensive end. And these are guys that we got to get to the quarterback. We got to put more pressure on the quarterback and make him throw balls that he doesn't want to throw. So that's going to be something that we need to look at this year.
Well, and Trey, trying to be fair to the previous staff, but looking at that, we're talking about the weight and the muscle that these guys have added. What are you seeing? You still talk to some of these guys. What is the major difference in the strength and conditioning program and the diet regimen that they're on now compared to the past?
Well, I think they've been on one of the main things that they've done is they put them on a mandatory breakfast regimen that they have to go eat breakfast every day, and that's big, and that's something that we didn't do in the past. We had a great strength coach in the past, but apparently, I think these guys really just bought into what this new staff's doing, and you can look at them and tell. I mean, it's really paying dividends for them.
So, did you have a problem eating breakfast in the past? Was that something? Was that as a punter? Did you skip breakfast?
Our practices were so early. I like to sleep in till just the exact minute, and try to show up just on time. So I never ate breakfast.
Guys, if you see Trey walking down the road, throw him a cereal bar. He needs it. But obviously, big changes there, and it's working. These guys are picking up a lot of muscle. They're picking up a lot of size. And that's going to be something to watch. But we just need this defense to improve. To be realistic, UAB's been in the triple digits in overall defensive production. Even if they could move, don't you think, Trey, into the 70th to 80th range in the country?
That'd be big.
That'd be a huge jump for this team.
Yep. You get them in, like we were talking about earlier, you get them up in 60, 70, 80th rank, and and have the offense keep you in the games and special teams help you out on some wins, and that'd be a big plus for us.
Well, UAB's offense did look better the second half of the year last year, and traditionally over the last few years they've been really good. Storyline looking at where they really failed last year, really had problems, was in the red zone. And you look back to 2011, UAB scored a touchdown only 47% of the time they get inside the 20-yard line. That's one of the lowest numbers in the country. 76% of the time, they at least got points. But again, that means 24% of the time that UAB got inside the 20-yard line last year, they didn't even leave with 3 points. That's obviously something that has got to improve for UAB looking at this year for that offense to be more productive. Trey, do you think with these running backs and obviously a quarterback that's a lot more seasoned than he was last year?
Absolutely. I mean,
what do you think about this number?
Absolutely. And you look back at last year, we didn't get into the end zone for the first time until the East Carolina game, and that's something that just blew my mind. I mean, offense was never a problem for us at UAB in the past, and but with the experience that we have coming back with our running backs and JP, that shouldn't be a problem. And having an experienced kicker, we ought to get some kind of points every time we get down there. So.
Yeah, you can't leave that many opportunities on the board. That was something that burned UAB last year. Want to talk about a couple more quick headlines before we start previewing the Troy game. One, Jonathan Perry looks like a totally different guy this year than last year. And Trey, you were on the sidelines last year. You knew when this guy went in, he was a quiet, mild-mannered guy. Talk about his progression becoming the leader that you saw him become last year and that he's becoming even more so now.
Right. JP, he waited a long time for his spot, but he's a hungry guy. I mean, he wants to win. He comes from a high school program that won state championships, and that's what something he's used to doing. And losing is unacceptable for him. And he's a hungry guy that wants to win and win now. And I think he's developing really well as a leader.
Taylor Klein, we're going to talk a little special teams for Trey here. And Taylor is a guy I've mentioned before. He's a very important part of the UAB special teams. He's been a starter pretty much his whole career at UAB. He's a long snapper. And that's a very underappreciated position. But, it's very important for the kicker and the punter to have that guy there to make sure that play always goes off right. Tell us a little bit about what opportunity Taylor has this year, Trey. He's got a very special opportunity this year.
Taylor can surpass Jake Stites for the all-time starts in UAB history. If we go to a bowl game or play for a conference championship, then he'll beat that record and he'll tie it regardless. So that's a big time deal, and he's a guy that's been there. He's a 4-year starter and rarely makes a mistake, and is one of the best long snappers in the whole entire country, and he's done really well for us.
So very special opportunity for Taylor, and we'll obviously hope he stays healthy and gets that opportunity this year. Can tie it at the very least. If he stays healthy, has a great opportunity to maybe walk away with that record from a guy, Jake, that was very, very productive, healthy guy for UAB. Started every game during his career. Amazing numbers. So we'll be looking at that this year as well. Also, I have one more stat that I want to throw out last year. And there's just something that is bugging me about Trey's career punting at UAB. I look at this number, and how many times, if you guessed, audience, did Trey punt in 2010? Trey, do you know this number?
55.
55 times. Trey, then as a junior, you again, come out on the field, you're a starter again. How many times did you punt?
55.
55 again. And last year as a senior, Trey, what happened?
I punted 55 times.
55 times every year.
It's funny that you say that, and I didn't have a clue what the stat was. But me and my mom were talking about that the other day, and we were looking at my stats, and she said, Trey, you've punted 55 times every single year. I was like, man, I really have, and that's a coincidence.
Well, Trey, with his job, his daytime job that he has, he's making tons of money here with us, but he still has a daytime job. He spent some time recently in Washington, D.C., and I think he's gone to Steven Strasburg and said, hey, look, dude, I was the original guy that when it reached a certain number, we shut it down.
Call it down.
Got 55 punts last year.
Stick to that number.
Yeah, he said, Hunter, get in there. It's your turn to punt. So I just had to get him a little bit on that. So Trey had a number, and he told the UAB football coaches, look, 55 times, that's it. We're done. So
I had to hold two now, and that takes a lot out on your leg.
So kicking fundamentals with Trey Ragland, something we're going to have all year. So had to get on Trey a little bit about those stats. That's some storylines and some stats from last year. We're going to see how those change and progress this year. Now, September 1st is coming up rapidly. This is a huge game. Trey, you're saying this may be the biggest game of the year.
It is the biggest game of the year, and it's not just because it's the first game, But there's a lot of uncertainty with this football team with a new coach, a new style of offense, defense. This team's hungry, just like I said about Jonathan Perry, and that's the whole team. They're hungry. They want to win right now. We're not in a rebuilding stage. I mean, we've been doing that for a while, and this team needs to. It's about time for them, get some success and start reaping some rewards. So,
but the Troy game, obviously, a very winnable game. And it's been, even the last 2 years, UAB 1-point games with Troy. It's been very close. They need to get this win out of the gate because there's some difficult games right after that. You got trips to South Carolina, trips to Ohio State, and then you come home to perennial Conference USA power Tulsa waiting on you before you get, I believe, to Southeast Louisiana. So you really need to get this one and then find a way to steal one of those others to really put yourself in position to hit the last half of the schedule to have a bowl game. So this is a huge game. It's a rivalry game. Nobody ever wants to lose to Troy. These players, when you talk to them, this is one of their biggest rivalry games. So, I mean, to you, Trey, where did they rank on the rivalry list?
Well, I'd probably put them third, but with Memphis leaving, they're going to jump up there at the second spot. And this is a game it's a big game. These are guys that played against each other in high school, and they're not far down the road. I mean, I'm pretty sure we have some recruiting battles with some guys. So this is an important game, and especially this year, I haven't seen this much excitement around this program in a long time. And this is the game that we need to come out of the gate and get a W on.
So how we start this year is going to be huge, and we're going to be seeing how that game goes down on September 1st. But, we're not experts on Troy football, and we don't pretend to be. We try to keep up with them a little bit. We've got respect for that program and know what they've been able to accomplish. So we have got a guy named Drew Champlin. He is a beat writer for Troy. He's just the guy to talk to about Troy football, and he's fixing to join us for an interview and get us up to date on everything Troy right after this.
Did you know that BlazerTV.com is the only completely independent source for UAB sports coverage? We have no outside affiliations or associations. That gives us the freedom to provide the coverage UAB fans deserve without dealing with the meddling from outside sources telling us what to cover. On the other side, it also means that we don't have the additional resources that those affiliations provide. You can help. Become a Blazer TV backer, and your contribution will help us increase the quantity and quality of UAB coverage, uninhibited by outside influence. Please consider contributing to our efforts by going to www.blazertv.com/donate and becoming a Blazer TV backer today.
Welcome back to Double Coverage. In our very first interview of the year, we're going to be talking with Drew Champlin. He is the beat writer for Troy. He works for the Dothan Eagle. He's been on the beat since 2005. Drew, we're excited about you joining us today.
Hey, absolutely. Thrilled to be on with you guys.
We want to let people know that they can follow your work on Twitter. He's got a Twitter account. You can follow him at Drew Champlin, DrewChamplin. So you can catch his work. He's got a link. He's got his own blog there covering everything Troy athletics. So we couldn't find a better guy to come on and talk a little Troy football with us. So again, Drew, thank you so much for coming on here with us.
Hey, you're welcome. I enjoyed just glad to be talking college football with somebody now.
Hey, Drew, this is Trey Ragland here, BlazerTV.com. First question for you. Coming off the 3-9 finish last year is a rare finish for Troy, something that their fans aren't used to seeing. Talk about what they've done in the offseason to kind of turn the page from that losing season.
Well, I think the off season for those guys was more about accountability, and of course, obviously, they recruited some players they think is going to come in and be a big part of the rotation, but they kind of had to go back and do that little finding themselves thing. They had a pretty grueling off-season program called the Octagon. When they were, they'd get those guys up, they'd have to be at the practice fields at 5:30 and doing all these just mentally tough and physically demanding stations in a short amount of time and going back and forth. And that was just a big accountability thing for them. And, that's not going to guarantee a certain amount of wins, but last year they just had all kinds of chemistry problems along with injuries, and pretty much everything that could go wrong did. And even in a couple of games that they won, those were very close games, like the UAB game last year being one of those. And, they have a better sense of I guess, team unity going into this year because, I think maybe last year towards the end of their run of 5 straight Sun Belt shared or outright championships, they might have been taking things for granted, and they're just trying to bounce back and get back on the right foot, and they know this first game is definitely it's a big one going into the season.
Well, looking at this game, what the Troy UAB rivalry really has grown over the last 2 years. The last 2 games have been 1-point games. What is the feel at Troy about this rivalry? Is this becoming one of the bigger games on the schedule every year for Troy?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially just because it's been so close the last couple of years. And, these guys aren't getting to play Auburn or Alabama, so this is kind of the miniaturized version of that state rivalry when you compare the rivalries in the state. Of course, Troy's also going to start playing South Alabama this year, but so it's going to be interesting to see how that develops. But, as of right now, Troy and UAB have a lot of history with each other. So, that's absolutely, it's a big rivalry. These guys, I don't want to hate a strong word or not, but there's definitely, both sides want to win pretty big.
Well, I want to ask one other quick question, just building on that. When you look at playing them the first game of the year, I think more Troy fans are going to come to Legion Field because they haven't seen their team. And I think next year, I believe UAB opens the season at Troy, that more UAB fans will go because they hadn't seen their team either. So do you think it's a good thing opening the year against each other?
Yeah, absolutely, especially for excitement levels, because you see a lot of teams around the country, they'll open up with teams, FCS teams or, SWAC teams, something like that. And, it's probably better for a team, because you want to, a lot of teams want to have a cupcake opener just to kind of iron the kinks out. But I think for both teams, it's going to be something to where, they're going to know what they need to work on to be successful for the final 11 games. And it's definitely going to be something where, fans are going to be a lot more excited seeing a UAB or a Troy on their schedule if they're fans of these two teams than seeing like an Alcorn State or just or a UT Martin or a team like that.
Drew, talking about the defense this year, it seems that the last 2 scrimmages have been defensive-dominated scrimmages. I think Coach Blakeney has stated that he thinks this is going to be a defensive-led group this year, or defensive-led team. Just talk about the defense coming into this year and getting past the struggles they had last year.
Well, they should be a little bit better defensively. It's hard to really regress when you were 113th in the country last year. So, I think the scrimmages, the offense isn't going to open up their whole playbook when there's fans there watching. But the defense, they really just made a concerted effort to bring in some new guys and get them pushing the returning guys, because there's a lot of guys who are going to be starting on this defense that either started or played a lot last year. They switched things up a little bit, going from your conventional 4-3 to kind of a hybrid 4-3, where one of the defensive ends is listed as a bandit, and he'll either rush the passer or drop back into coverage. And that guy is actually going to be a redshirt freshman named Tyler Roberts from Hoover High School. He's listed as a starter right now. So they're trying to just get more speed on the field, put more pressure on the quarterback. And, they signed a couple of good defensive backs. They got a transfer from USC named T.J. Bryant and a junior college All-American from Butler County, Kansas, and Zach Miller. But, they should be better defensively. And they've shown in the scrimmage that, are they going to be a top 30 or 40 team? Probably not, but they should be a good bit better than they were last year.
Well, I noticed there was one guy that Coach Blakeney appeared upset about that they lost. There's a defensive tackle I read about on your blog named John Clark, who Blakeney actually stated was one of the best big guys in the history of the program and was lost, is not going to be eligible this year. How big of a blow was that? That is very high praise coming from Coach Blakeney. Yeah,
John is a guy that he's a fourth-year junior, and he was eligible by NCAA standards but not eligible, I guess, to be in school by Troy standards. And they had a running back named Chris Anderson have the same sort of trouble. He just got declared ineligible a few days ago. But Clark is a guy, if you remember the last-second Hail Mary 2 years ago, if you go back and watch that, you'll see number 96, and he's very close to getting that quarterback's arm. And he was just a freshman then, and he was a guy that, hadn't really done a whole lot over the first 2 years of his career. He, started a little here and there, had spot duty here and there, but, he'd gotten his body big enough and strong enough to where he could have been a pretty good player this year. But just a quality, character kid. He tried for whatever reason in the classroom, but just didn't work out for him this year. And they're hoping to get him back next year for his final year. But it's, they got about probably 6 other guys that can plug some holes in the middle. But when you lose a starter or a projected starter, it's you can't just say, oh, we'll just push them out of the way and move somebody else. It's a pretty big loss for them, I think.
Right. Talking about the offense now, Troy the last couple of years kind of been a pass-happy offense with Corey Robertson throwing over 3,000 every year. Coaches have praised him this preseason camp about how his fundamentals have improved, and just talk about his progression over the offseason.
Well, he is a guy that's going to benefit from a lot of other starters coming back. When his freshman year, when he was pretty good, he had 4 senior wide receivers that were very good and pretty veteran offensive line. Last year, it was basically just an all-new group of receivers, and then a couple starting offensive linemen got hurt early in the season and were either out for the year or ineffective. You had a couple freshmen on the right side of the line, and I think the fact that he's improved his fundamentals from what coaches say, night and day compared to last year, that's going to help him a lot. But so is the fact that everybody else around them is a lot more experienced and a lot better than they were last year. They know who to block. They know which routes to run better, and they're bigger and stronger and more physical. So, I think Corey's going to have – he didn't really have a bad year last year, but, I think he's going to bounce back and have a pretty good year this year.
Looking at some other areas on the offense, the offensive line is a big question mark for UAB. They're replacing all their starters, but read recently how Troy still felt like there was a lot of work to be done on the offensive line. How's that progressing to this point?
They've got their starting 5. They feel pretty comfortable in that. It's going to be 3 seniors, left tackle, left guard, and center, but that's kind of 3 new starters. The center is actually going into his 4th year as a starter, but he was a left guard last year and a right tackle a couple of years before that. Just a very versatile guy who's done pretty good things for the program. And on the right side is those 2 guys who, they had their moments last year as freshmen. They're going to be sophomores this year. So, it's a more experienced group than it was last year. They have, they have some backups they feel, I think, good about. But, they were a little concerned early in fall camp because they had some guys having to sit up because of heat exhaustion or just a little minor, ding or bruise here and there. But I think they've got the group they want to roll with, and they've identified the next 3 or 4 guys if someone were to go down. And those 3 or 4 guys are mostly veterans, so I think they're better equipped to handle injuries this year than they were last year at that position.
Well, 2 running backs. You mentioned earlier you have one guy, I believe, Chris Anderson, who is academically ineligible, but you've got another guy who is not going to be able to go the first game, I believe, from heat-related issues, some injury problems there. What's the running back situation going to look like when because Troy had 3 rushing touchdowns last year against UAB. Are they going to expect that same type of productivity coming into this game?
Well, if you think about it, the guy that had those 3 rushing touchdowns, if I remember right, is DJ Taylor, and he's going to be the guy that's going to probably have to miss this game. Or, according to what Coach Blaney said last week, he's going to miss the game. It hasn't been cleared yet to practice. Maybe they could squeeze him in or surprise and get him in late, but he's a big part of the offense because he's a big leader, and he's one of those guys that came in as a walk-on, earned a scholarship, right away almost, and just he's a big back too. He's 230 pounds, so they're going to miss that. But they've also, they got Sean Southford, who's been their leading rusher the past 3 years, who's probably could have had close to 1,000 yards in any of those 3 seasons had he been the main ball carrier and not if they didn't have 2 or 3 running back systems. So he's could get 20 carries in this game. He's pretty talented. He's gotten himself. He's a senior, so obviously he's been in the college weight room for a while, and he's improved on a lot of things. But behind that, there's not a whole lot of experience at the position. They've got a guy named Kari Franklin, who's a junior, who's been playing a little bit of receiver his first couple of years, and a couple of freshmen, Deron White, a redshirt freshman, never played in the college game before, and Brandon Burks, a true freshman from around here in a little town called Delville. He's shown some flashes, but he's also had some ball security issues in the scrimmage. So, they're going to let Southward be their bell cow for this game, running the ball, and they'll get those other guys in whatever positions, whatever formations they feel like are better fits.
Drew, when you look over at the special teams area, took a big hit from losing Will Goggins at punter and Michael Taylor at kicker, and those are, I think, 3 or 4 year starter guys at the all conference level. Who's going to fill those gaps this year for the special teams?
It looks like it's going to be just one guy, a guy named Will Scott, who's a junior college transfer from Mississippi Gulf Coast. He was a second-team JUCO All-American as a punter last year, I do believe, and he was the team's punter and place kicker when he was a freshman. So he's the guy that, they brought him in for sure thinking he was going to be the punter, and, he showed right away he could be that guy. And they had three guys battling for the place kicker job, and, they thought it might be one out of two freshmen, but, it's ended up being Will Scott being the most consistent guy kicking the field goals. The first scrimmage, the kickers didn't look very good. The second kickers, I thought they looked a lot better. So, I'm not really sure how big of a leg he's got. I'm sure they'll feel comfortable, probably, 48 in, maybe a little farther. But, that's another thing that's going to be interesting to see. How does this kid react in a Division I college football game? And so that's definitely an area that fans need to be looking for Troy, or even for UAB as well, to just to see how Troy special teams can do in this game.
Well, you mentioned something that would be interesting to see, obviously, with what's going on with the special teams. What's something that maybe we haven't talked about yet that you're going to be looking for September 1st?
Really, I want to see how Troy reacts to this. On paper, I would think Troy has more experience. I've not seen the UAB depth chart, but I've read a lot of stuff hyping up some freshmen, that Coach McGee recruited, I guess, since he took over. And I guess they're going to have a lot of freshmen playing in this first game. Am I right, you guys?
There's going to be a lot on the defensive side in the secondary. UAB struggled some in the secondary in the past. There's some thought that maybe they're going to be better than the guys they replace. But you can never know with the freshmen stepping on the field. Most of these guys, in fairness, were recruited, however, by Callaway and had signed before McGee came in. It was going to be a good recruiting class, but you are correct. There's going to be a lot of freshmen in that secondary.
Yeah, so you wonder how they're going to do in their first game. Troy's not going to be running out very many freshmen, so that they should have the experience edge. But I think UAB is going to have the intangibles edge. I don't know what kind of crowd is going to be out there for an 11 a.m. game. I kind of thought UAB got the shaft by the city of Birmingham, making that game be at 11 a.m. and then the Tuskegee Alabama A&M game being at 7 a.m. Because I kind of think the local Division I team should get the night game. Probably would have had a better crowd for UAB. But, if UAB can come out and hit Troy in the mouth early on, last couple of years, Troy hasn't really been very good at responding to pressure situations. So I'm interested to see what UAB has in store with a new coaching staff and a new excitement, what kind of crowd's going to be there. And if they're able to do something to Troy early on that could really set the tempo for the game, how is Troy going to be able to respond?
Yeah. Drew, when you look back at the last couple of years, all the success that Troy's had with the bowl games and the conference championships, they had a pretty good run there. And, this last year was something that the fans and the team, and the whole program, wasn't really used to, as far as the losing season goes. Do you think, in your opinion, that this team can come back and be a championship, level team?
Well, they'll be a lot better. But the thing is, around the Sun Belt, a lot of those other teams have gotten better. Where you look at 2007, 08, 09, that was kind of years 2, 3, and 4 in that championship run. They were blowing most teams out of the water. They had a couple of losses here and there, I think, but 2010, there wasn't that many blowouts. They were having to come back in the fourth quarter and beat teams, and then last year they were on the opposite end of those. So, teams like Arkansas State and Louisiana Lafayette in the conference are a lot better than they were earlier in Troy's run. So, Troy's going to have a better team than they had last year, but, how's it going to show? They do have the tougher teams are coming to Troy this year, so, they could have a better team than they did 3 years ago, but only go 6-6 or 7-5 or something like that at best. So they're going to have to certainly create their own breaks and take advantage of them and have a little luck on the injury side, which they haven't had the past couple of years. So I think they'll be better, but how much is it going to be reflected in the wins-loss record?
Well, Drew, we want to thank you for coming on with us and spending a little time with us. And we want to remind everybody again, Drew works for the Dothan Eagle, covering Troy sports since 2005. And you can follow him on Twitter at Drew Champlin. And there's a link there. You're telling me there's a link there to your blog spot, correct?
Yeah, and I always tweet out links to whatever I do, whatever stories or notes I write on the day. So anything, pretty much anything I write, I usually link it to Twitter as well.
Drew's got a lot of good work. If you want to see what's going on with the in-state rival leading up to the September 1st game, check that out. Drew, we thank you for your time, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Hello, Blazer fans. I'm Mitchell Miller, and this is your weekly Conference USA update. Our thoughts and prayers go out to all affected by Hurricane Isaac this week. Tulane has been forced to evacuate and move practices to Birmingham, Alabama. As of this recording, the Green Wave still plan on hosting Rutgers this Saturday at the Superdome. Southern Miss has canceled classes for Tuesday and Wednesday. It's unknown how practice may be affected. Some of the matchups to look for on opening week in CUSA, the Rice Owls host UCLA on Thursday night at 6:30 Central Time. Marshall will travel to number 11 West Virginia on Saturday. Kickoff is currently set for 11 a.m. Central. And Southern Miss will take on number 17 Nebraska Saturday at 2:30 p.m. Central on ABC. That's your look at Conference USA. Now back to Tyler and Trey in studio.
And we're back, and we want to thank Drew Champlin again from the Dothan Eagle for coming on and really giving us some inside information on Troy football. You also, during that break, got a Conference USA update. You can look for that every week. That's going to be a weekly segment here on our show, so that's something else to look forward to keep you up to date. And we're moving forward now. We're going to be talking about some things that we need to see from UAB. We're going to talk about some things they have to do to win this game coming up on Saturday. And the first thing I wanted to talk about was, for the defense last year, really struggled a little bit against Troy, gave up 87 plays last year to the Trojans. Troy ran more plays against us last year than anybody else. The defense got to get off the field, Trey.
That's something that we got to do. And this young secondary is going to get tested quick with this pass-happy offense.
Yeah, Corey Robinson, good game last year.
I mean, he really likes slinging around, and our D-line can really help our secondary out if they get to the quarterback and make him throw the ball that he doesn't want to throw.
Well, yeah, he had 350 yards passing last year against UAB. And Trey, do you know how many sacks UAB had in that game? The secondary out?
Probably zero, maybe one.
No sacks in that game. I know we only had 8 for the season last year. UAB got to get to the quarterback, like Trey said. Very young secondary. You got a young secondary. Last year, the secondary did have a T.J. Ballou, who was a guy who was hurt a lot. He did have a pick 6 in that game, I believe, that really helped UAB out. So, it could have been worse had he not been there. But we're looking this year, need some help. You need some help from that defensive front to get Corey Robinson off the field. Something else we're going to be looking at this year, Troy, they shot themselves in the foot a little bit last year. 10 penalties, 72 yards. How important is it, looking Saturday to be the most – and let's change that up a little bit. That was the 4th game last year, 3rd or 4th game. How hard is it to be disciplined in the first game, Trey, and to win that penalty battle?
That's the game that, where you're going to have your early mistakes, and that's normal. That's going to happen. But penalties in this game, it's going to be a close game, and penalties in this game is going to be big. The least penalized team, and also the team that has the least amount of turnovers is probably going to win this football game.
And last year, unconventional wisdom played out. UAB had half the penalties that Troy did, only had 5. Troy comes in 10 penalties, 72 yards, and Troy also had 3 turnovers, still find a way to win the game. If that happens this year, UAB has got to take advantage of those mistakes and get points on the board and keep their defense off the field to keep rested against the pass-happy Brett Favre-like Corey Robinson. This guy's going to throw the ball all over the field. If you haven't seen him in action much, that's what he's going to do. He's just a strong-arm guy, and they're talking about his improved fundamentals. Going to be a good player to watch. So that's a couple of things we got to look for. Last year, Troy, 3 rushing touchdowns. But it's safe to say we may not see as much. They got a couple running backs that are not there that they were counting on. So, the D-line, again, not trying to put too much pressure on them, Trey, but they got to keep the Troy running backs out of the end zone, especially with a couple of those guys missing.
Absolutely, and one of those running backs walked in for 3 touchdowns on us last year.
Yeah, but it's important to remember, too, we just talked with Mr. Champlin. It looks like that running back's going to be out. He's not practiced yet, so unless something miraculous happens, he's out of the game Saturday.
Right, and that's one thing that we got to capitalize on, a player of that magnitude. And also another opportunity that I think we have an advantage over is special teams. They got a guy, or they've lost all their starters, their long snapper, their punter, and their kicker. 4-year starters, they're out due to graduation, and we're returning everybody but me. And with the punting, with the punting team, I think we're not going to miss a beat because Hunter Mullins is going to step in. This is a guy that's been doing this for so long. He's got a great leg. He's got a great mental game aspect as well, and that's an advantage that I think that we're going to have over Troy.
Yeah, and Trey, if you talk to Trey outside of here, he always said his favorite term, and any special teams guy, hidden yards, hidden yards, hidden yards. This is huge. Special teams is hidden yards, and you got to win this battle if you're UAB this weekend. You got to take advantage of these new guys because, first game jitters, even at the, what's it like going out there the very first time to punt?
Your first punt, I remember my first punt against Rice. It was me and Taylor Klein's first game ever, and you don't have much time to really think about it, and that's one thing that the Hunter's going to have to get past and really step in there and fill those shoes.
So obviously that's another area that we really need to see good things out of UAB on Saturday. We've kind of talked about all the things that we're looking for in this game and what UAB's got to do in our minds to win, things they've got to change from last year. So we're just going to start getting into now. We're going to make our predictions for this week's game, and we've talked about how important this is. And, we've got a simulation that we've done. Our Blazer TV director, Mitchell Miller, has an Xbox that he is very proud of. And he is also very proud of his UAB dynasty that he's got on it. But he simulated a full 60-minute game, UAB versus Troy. We're going to do this every week to see who wins for fun. And, I don't know, but the defenses – please take this to note that you have to show up Saturday UABD because nobody showed up. UAB won this game 38-31. Total yards.
I'm looking at 695 yards. We got about 1,200 yards of total offense in both teams here.
Yeah, it was unbelievable game. UAB really struggled on fourth down conversions, Trey. Only 1 for 6. They must have not had very much confidence in Hunter. They went for it every time.
So he's going to be fine.
Yeah, they're going to be fine. So obviously this is for fun, but we did this little simulation. UAB 38-31 over Troy. So we definitely will take that. Jonathan Perry threw for 482 yards and 2 touchdowns. Corey Robinson, 495 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 3 picks. But got to mention here, your boy Ty Long. I don't know about this.
You better not say this now. He's a superstitious guy now. He doesn't.
Okay, we're not going to mention what happened to Ty Long in this game. He did okay. So we're not going to mention that. But hopefully, this is a little bit more defense Saturday. But by our prediction, we'll see how that goes. Our simulation says UAB is going to win. So we're definitely going to take that. Going into this game, lots of question marks for both teams. Troy coming off of what they did last year, very un-Troy-like. UAB, new coaching staff. Trey says, it's not time for rebuilding. Coach McGee has said, it's not like it's a rebuilding situation coming in. There was a lot more good players than they thought. We've talked about the importance of this game. Trey, all those things considered, all the factors we've talked about, what do you see happening on Saturday?
You talk about how we're hungry too, but they are too. They just came off a losing season for the first time in 5 years, and those guys are used to getting rings at the end of the year. And so they're hungry too as well. I think, I think we come in with all the excitement, and I think we're going to have a great crowd. And I think we win this game. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Ty Long kicks a game-winning field goal. That's what I'm thinking.
Oh, that's throwing a bone to your buddy there. Gotta like that. And hey, we'll take it. Ty obviously kicked two last year, so that situation comes up. We feel pretty good about it. But looking at this game for me, one thing I want to see a little bit of improvement out of the UAB defense from what they played last year. If they get that improvement, if they're able to contain Corey Robinson a little bit, get a little pressure on him like Trey keeps alluding to, I see that happening, and I think UAB walks away with this one. I think they get a 35-27 win is my prediction for Saturday.
However we can get it.
And I think the crowd's going to play a very big role in this. I think there's going to be a very big UAB crowd. Season ticket sales up by 50%. Alabama and Auburn play later in the day, so you potentially have more players there. People coming to watch that, and also Troy. I think they bring a big crowd. It's the first game of the year. They're ready to get 2011 out of their the taste of that out of their mouth. I think this is going to be a very well attended game. Crowd's going to be in it, but I think UAB is going to be able to take advantage of that energy because it's been a while since they really had a crowd that's going to be so loud and behind them.
How many do you think we're going to have there? You think?
Oh, that we've debated this a lot.
Weather permitted, blue skies.
What do you see, Trey? I'm gonna let you go first because you've got an opinion on this because you just mentioned it.
If I had to go out on a limb, I think between 30 and 35,000, probably.
30 and 35,000. So you're willing to.
They're going to bring people. I mean, they're going to bring fans too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible Troy brings 10,000 fans. I think it's possible because, and they may not, but it's not that far. I think it helps being the first game of the year. I think it is beneficial to either school that's the first game that nobody's seen their team yet. So that helps. And I think you got potential for walk-up people because of the 3 games that are going on. Maybe you just want to come in. We've already alluded to season ticket sales are up. Group ticket sales are up. Athletic department's talked about that. I think there's an outside chance that the attendance record could be broken. I think it's probably a little bit early when you're trying to build this new culture McGee's talking about. But I think the prediction that you said, 35, 38,000, I think you could be there. I think it could push 40. That's what I think.
I hope. I sure hope so.
I think that's very possible. So we're going to be there no matter how many people are there, and we'll be sure to get some crowd shots to show you what it looks like, and it's an exciting day. It's a new page for UAB. Obviously, maybe not the rebuilding era that some people think it is. What is this going to be? What's it going to be like on Saturday? We're going to get a lot of questions answered on Saturday that we're waiting on, Trey.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a whole new atmosphere. Just talking to the guys, they're really excited, and we got new jerseys coming out. I know they're trying to keep that hidden, so.
Well, it's hidden no more.
Well,
I
say hidden on the style of jersey. I mean, everybody knows we got new jerseys coming, but it's gonna be a good atmosphere. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, so we're not going to ask Trey to get an early picture and tweet it out of the jerseys because that's a surprise. We don't want to do that, and we don't want that. I only got a bump on my head. That was nice right there to end the show on a little bump on my head there. I will have a haircut for the next game, I promise. We are excited about double coverage this year, and this is our first show, and I can promise you one thing. We're going to get more in depth. We're going to get better. We're going to get used to each other and rolling with this, and we hope that you're along for the ride. And, I really feel got a chance maybe to have a bowl season. We're going to talk about that more. Be looking next week on the site, probably after the show is released, probably Wednesday or Thursday. Our entire staff, being me, Trey, Darian, and Mitchell Miller that cover football, we're going to make our football predictions. And we might let our cameraman Bryant Bolin do it. We're not going to say that. We might see if he wants a prediction. We're going to release our season predictions on what we think is going to happen this year. So that's something that's going to come out the latter part of next week. We're going to tease that a little bit. So, something else to think about what's going to happen in 2012. So, again, you can follow us on Twitter, blazertv.com, spelled out. And you can also follow blazertv.com on Facebook. You can follow me and Trey. We mentioned that earlier. You can find us very easily on Twitter as well. Keep up with everything that's going on. Double coverage. We're here every Tuesday. We're excited to be here. And, tell a friend. Tell everybody that we are here and going to change UAB football coverage. So, Trey, any final words on your first episode here at blazertv.com at Double Coverage?
I enjoyed it. Blazer are now.
Well, we will say this. We really are hoping for a conference championship game and a bowl game. But Trey has already told us that 13 max. We know that there's only going to be 13 shows. So if we do that, we don't know what we're going to do. Trey, 55 punts, 13 shows. That's the number.
Keep it to it.
Hunter Mullen may have to come in and do the last show. We'll just see what happens. So thank you again. I'm Tyler Cantrell. This is Trey Ragland, and we look forward to seeing you all season long here covering UAB football on blazertv.com.